This is going to be a full all-22 and data-driven breakdown of Browns Steelers, covering both sides of the ball in depth. The key for the Browns in this game is just going to be about those early downs. This Steelers defense is so aggressive and fast. They're number 2 in turnovers, only behind Jacksonville, and it starts with that defensive line. They have the guys, right? They have TJ Watt, they have Cam Hayward, but they don't just win by one-on-one matchups. It's more than that. They win with this whole unit. So what do I mean by that, right? They run a lot of stunts. They prey on miscommunication, and they do it to a lot of offensive lines. When you look at this play from the Patriots, they're just running a simple TE stunt. Number 51, the edge defender, is just going to crash inside, and he's going to take up both the left tackle and the left guard, which frees up Cam Hayward to run and loop around unblocked, and the Steelers get the sack. This is something that the Browns have kind of struggled with to start the year. When you look at that Week 2 game against Baltimore, which was a terrible offensive showing, they got destroyed with these types of stunts in both the run and the pass game. So offensive line is going to be at a premium in this game. The Browns cannot afford to get behind the 8 ball in the pass game, and the offensive line is going to be huge in that. They are starting Cam Robinson instead of KT Livingston, who was, no disrespect, pretty terrible to start the year. So it's good that we have a left tackle now that is going to be able to pick up some of these stunts that the Steelers are going to run. Then in the run game, the Steelers are an inside unit when it comes to that defending the run. They crash a lot. They're going to play fast to the ball, and they're going to play north-south. If you try to run up the gut and play vertical, they're going to dominate. They have the meat on the interior, and their edge defenders crash inside all the time. So the Browns need to run concepts that widen the edges. What does that mean? It means to make them stretch horizontally. You need to punish their aggressiveness, and this is something that Minnesota did pretty well in Week 4, although they kind of got out of their run game script because they just got down early. On this play, they're just running a simple outside zone where you're going to get the offensive line moving in one direction, and that pulls 41 and 6 with the offensive line, and that opens up a cutback lane for Jordan Mason to run for 10 yards. And this is something that the Browns have not really done with Quinshon Judkins. They're going to have an opportunity to play more east-west instead of north-south because the Steelers, they're undisciplined when it comes to defending those horizontal runs. This is something they show on tape time and time again because their linebackers, although they're very, very athletic, they aren't the most disciplined unit, and these horizontal runs are going to put more pressure on the linebackers to fill the gaps correctly. So that's the early downs. When you get into third down, this is a tricky situation for Dillon Gabriel and this Browns offense. But I did find an interesting wrinkle. So the Steelers have, on third down, they face a lot of empty formation, which they have performed terribly against. They rank last in yards per game allowed, 27th in yards per attempt allowed, and second to last in EPA allowed. So why are the Steelers so bad against empty formation? It's because this takes away exactly what the Steelers are good at on defense. It takes away their ability to run a lot of stunts and to run a lot of disguise and simulated pressures because the offense is so spread out. When it's so spread out, you have to put you have to put a hat on the outside, and so you're not going to be able to have a lot of flexibility defensively. And this is something that the Seahawks particularly used a ton in their Week 2 upset of them. They used empty formation on over half of their third downs versus Pittsburgh. And so far, every team that's leaned on empty, although not as heavy as Seattle did, has carved Pittsburgh up. And this isn't speculation, because Stefanski has historically used empty versus Tomlin's defense extensively. And I expect him to deploy it a lot. But it's going to require Dillon Gabriel to be accurate on these throws, because the Steelers are going to run cover one, and Gabriel's going to have Judy over the middle of the field like these other teams have done, and it's going to be on Gabriel to put it in some tight windows. Now, the Steelers have also been trying to run a lot more zone as of late. This is something that they've said they wanted to do since training camp, and they've been horrible at it to start the season. Miscommunications are super common when they're in those two high shells, and they just don't play cohesively when they're in this zone coverage. Minnesota had a couple of chances to really pop one to Justin Jefferson. Wentz just didn't see it, or the offensive line didn't hold up. But I think the Browns could hit a big crosser play in this game if that O-line can hold up for a play or two. On the other side of the ball, the Steelers' offense is doing all right. They're a ball control, two tight end, efficiency over explosives type of offense. And when it's in rhythm, it works pretty well. Aaron Rodgers has the fastest time to throw in the league. He has the lowest depth of target by a pretty good margin. And almost 3/4 of his passing yards are after the catch, which is insane. I mean, the next quarterback is only at 60%. Rodgers has really reinvented himself. He's reading the defense quickly, and he's getting to the ball into the hands of his playmakers. This is a yak offense. They have DK Metcalf, they have Pat Freiermuth, and two great running backs for the yards after the catch in the receiving game. And they do have Calvin Austin, although he is going to miss this game, which is a pretty big hit for them. They have a multiple run game as well, and they're especially good when they have two tight ends on the field because they have beef, and they can also run a lot of outside zone, a lot of outside pull where they get those guards into space. And although it's struggled overall this season, I like what they're doing recently. They had a pretty solid 130-yard game against Minnesota. They ran a ton of concepts, and I think that run game is only going to continue to get better. For the Browns, the way to stop this offense is just they have to get them out of this game script. This is also going to be an offense thing, right? You want to get points up early because this offense is completely different when they're up by 7 versus when they're down by 7. This offense is going to work very well in 1st and 10, 2nd and 6, but it's going to falter in 3rd and 10 in those obvious passing situations. So here's some interesting data I found. When Rodgers is playing against zone this year, 76.9% of his passes are on target, which is a top 10 mark in the league. But when the defense plays man, only a little bit over half of his passes are actually on target, which is almost dead last in the league. And this makes a lot of sense, right? Because Rodgers' mental game is still elite. He's still almost 2-decade-year vet who has seen every defense in the book. But his physical ability is just diminished at this point. It's not the same, obviously. And that's why he's doing better against zone than man. Because zone is more about reading the defense. It's more about finding the open man, open window. It's more cerebral. But against man, you just got to have it or you don't. It's either do you have the arm talent, do you have the tight window throws, which doesn't really lean much into his strengths as a quarterback right now, which is crazy to say. And obviously, the Browns play the most man in the league. If the Browns can play man, if they can get in these receivers' faces, they can take away Rodgers' easy buttons. And then the Steelers can't run their offense the way they want to. When you put the Steelers in 3rd and 6 or longer, they convert just 1 out of 5 times, which is bottom 10 in the league. So it's all going to be about whether the Browns can kind of dictate the game on 1st and 2nd down. If they can put the Steelers in a lot of 3rd and longs, they're going to have a great day. But if the Steelers mix up that run game and use misdirection, they're going to be able to keep themselves out of situations they don't want to be in, and they're going to have the upper hand. And overall, this game is just going to come down to who can do that. Who can put themselves in better situations on 3rd down? Because we can't have Gabriel dropping on 3rd and 8 more than once or twice in this game. It's just not a way sustainably to win this game. The Browns have to execute on early downs if they want to win this game. They have to have the run game going. They have to have these linebackers in fits. And Gabriel has to be delivering the football on time and in connection with these receivers. Overall, I do think the Browns will keep this close, but I do have the Steelers winning 20-16. And I think this is a game where the Steelers' offense kind of doesn't figure things out until a little bit later. That run game, I think, is going to start to pick up later in the game. I think the Browns are still going to struggle with some of that misdirection on defensively. And then offensively, this offensive line hasn't given me anything to really suggest they're going to do much of anything against a Steelers defensive line that has gotten better week over week. I want to see some creativity from Stefanski. I'm worried he's just going to run it north-south with Judkins, and we need to see these linebackers get taken advantage of. I don't think this is going to be some horror show blowout, but I do think the Steelers win this game and drop the Browns to 1-5, but obviously hope to be very wrong here. And then some other picks for this NFL slate, just if you want some action for this week. I have the Jets +7, Patriots -3.5, Bengals +14.5, and Seahawks with the pick'em.